What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions for God of War Ragnarok. Sequel, of course, to 2018's series reboot, which I am taking a look at now because the game just very recently released on PC yesterday from the time of this video, and as this is a PC channel, I've been waiting a fair bit of time for this one. And at least for the first few hours here, it's mostly been pretty good. But realistically, as with any game, there's a few things you should be aware of before you even consider buying it. For starters, even if you're on Steam with this, you still have to have a PSN account, which I actually have from when I reviewed Ghost of Tsushima not that long ago, so that part was whatever. But the people who obviously live in an area where that network is not available are going to run into other problems. And looking through the initial Steam reviews for this one, I am seeing quite a few reports of various hardware issues, like people having trouble getting the game to recognize certain control setups, but I personally haven't really experienced any of that. The game has so far ran pretty well for me. Now, speaking of controls, however, I'm always curious about how games that are exclusive to other platforms coming to PC handle this, and for the most part it seems decent, but there's a couple little oddities in there. For starters, for whatever reason, they won't let you rebind the sprint key very specifically. You can choose between two options, or simply to have sprint on all the time, which is an acceptable option for myself. It was just an odd place to draw that line, I suppose. And the other thing was the default camera lock setting is terrible for a mouse. It was like non-stop jumping between enemies, and I had to change that immediately. So right away, just be aware that if you want to play this on PC, at least here at launch, there's a handful of considerations you might want to make on that front in regards to performance. Now, speaking for the actual game, first impressions wise, I want to say right away, I am very rusty. I haven't played the original in like a year or two, as I've been waiting on this one, and I've been reviewing other games since, and my muscle memory was not kind to this game, I'll tell you that. So I've been having to remember some of the basics for sure. But speaking of remembering the basics, another thing I'm always curious about with sequels is how they handle progression systems, and it would seem that where God of War Ragnarok here carries on from the original, and thus Fumble Winter is in the middle of happening, they're using that period of winter before the beginning of Ragnarok to justify why Kratos has lost some of his edge, if you will, as the winter itself has corroded things like gear, magical items, and basically any other thing that they didn't want you to have right away, because they absolutely do let you keep some of that previous game's progression, but that's kind of the in-universe explanation for it, which I thought was neat. Now, story-wise, as I mentioned, Fumble Winter is ongoing. Atreus has grown up a little bit and is learning about his role as Loki, coming into powers all his own. Some he is in control of, some less so, like the fact that he transformed into a bear and tries to kill you at one point but didn't realize what he was doing, which acts as like the sort of intro boss. Now, speaking of bosses, one of the few things I was aware about with this game before playing it for myself, of course, was that there was a fight with Thor, which was always going to happen, of course, but I did not realize that that's like one of the first fights in the game. I did not realize that was like an opening scene, though I imagine there will be a reoccurrence later. That one just caught me off guard a little bit. But otherwise, the game throws you right into the thick of things. Freya is trying to kill you for killing Baldur. Thor and Odin show up to basically tell you to stop trying to investigate what happened to Tyr, or more specifically tells Atreus to do so, and naturally you're not going to listen to that at all or we wouldn't have a game. And it'll be interesting to see the conclusion to that stuff, because one of the things I really enjoyed about the first game was seeing the ever-raging Kratos chilling out and trying to understand his son in a meaningful way, and as a father myself, that stuff always gets to me. So I'm curious if this game can really capture what made that story great, but I've heard good things about it, so we'll see. Now, on the gameplay end of things, while they've certainly changed the framing of a few things, most of it seems pretty much the same. You've got gear, you've got your weapons, you're going to craft and upgrade those as you go, giving you access to different stats, which affects combat. It's got that action-adventure vibe where you're going to use the gear you have acquired to get through shortcuts and stuff, and then explore some of the realms. Rather than use the big portal room like last time, this time, Sindri and Brock, the dwarves we met previously, are facilitating that travel via just a little doorway from their realm between realms, as Fumble Winter is going on, which is locked down realm travel. And as you kill enemies, you gain experience that you can then spend on acquiring skills and then you use those skills to upgrade them, which I thought was nice. And truth be told, I don't remember if that's exactly how that worked in the first one or not. It's been a little bit. But combat-wise, I would say that and exploration seems to basically be what I remember from the original so far, and I can see why you would do that. No need to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. But they've just made little subtle changes. Like, for instance, your basic shield breaks towards the beginning, so you get a bunch of generic regular shields to craft and use, which have stats associated with them as opposed to that one just being static. But your weapons, your combos, your runic attacks, that all seems to function basically exactly the way I remembered it, which holds true for exploration as well, though obviously there are moments where you have like this dog sled. So there's that. Now, when I put all of that together for myself at least, it seems like what this adventure is going to entail is basically just slightly tweaked and hopefully improved systems that expand upon that pretty tried and true formula that they have already been through. And honestly, I'm good with that. As long as the story holds up, I think that'll be perfectly fine. But so far, so good. Now, with that in mind, when it comes to fully reviewing this one, that is, of course, on my plate, or you wouldn't be getting this video, but it's going to take me a minute to get to it. Final Fantasy XVI also came to PC right at the same time, and I'm about halfway through that one already. So I'm going to finish that, cover a bunch of other things this week, and then God of War will have my full attention afterwards. So it will likely take me at least a couple weeks to actually get the review out for this one, but I wanted to go ahead and share those first impressions right away, which I think is the most natural place to leave off on this video. So far, so good. Definitely watch out for those problems I laid out at the beginning, but otherwise it seems like this will hopefully be a pretty good time, but I'll know for sure when I've played through the whole thing. Now, in the meantime though, if you'd like to let me know how you feel about this one, certainly do so down in the comment section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.